Hi mates, Paul.K.Dragon here, and yes, your eyes are not fooling you. I just had a makeover, and it's all thanks to Alex Voicer. Thank you for doing this. This looks fantastic. And to celebrate this, it's about time I tackle one game that has given me more headaches than any other game. It's time to review Ninja Gaiden for the NES. The Famicom version of the game was first announced by Tecmo in the January 15, 1998 issue of the Family Computer magazine under the title Ninja Gaiden. The game was released on December the 9th of the same year in Japan under its finalized title of Ninja Ryu Kenden, which roughly translates to Legend of the Dragon Sword. It was developed and released around the same time as the beat-em-up arcade version of the same name. Neither of the two games were ports of each other, but were parallel projects developed by different teams. According to the developer Mazakato, listed as Ranmaru in the game's credits, the Team Ninja was gaining popularity in North America, prompting Tecmo to develop a ninja-related game for the NES at the same time as the arcade version of Ninja Gaiden being developed. The NES version was developed and directed by Hideo Yoshizawa. Ninja Gaiden was also Masato Kato's first full-time project as a video game designer, as he contributed to the game's graphics, animations, and instructions manual illustrations. Drawing inspiration from the Mario series, Yoshizawa kept the same title but changed everything else. It became a platformer as opposed to the beat-em-up, such as Double Dragon. The gameplay was modeled after Konami's Castlevania, while Ryu being equipped with a katana-like dragon sword, shurikens, and ninpo techniques, such as the fire wheels. In designing the protagonist Ryu Hayabusa, the development team wanted him to be unique from other ninjas. They designed him with a ninja vest in order to place emphasis on his muscles, and they furnished him with a cowl and arched outward. They really wanted to equip Ryu with the sensors and a helmet with an inside monitor to check his surroundings. Kinda like Genji from Overwatch. But that idea was scrapped. According to Kato, they utilized specific locations and environments to justify the need for having a ninja for a main character. Yoshizawa placed great emphasis on the story as opposed to the arcade version, and he wrote and designed the plot that included over 20 minutes of cinematic cutscenes. The first time an NES game contained such sequences, Tecmo called the cutscene system Tecmo Theater, in which the game reveals the storyline between acts through the usage of animated sequences. These sequences are used to the beginning of each act to introduce new characters, such as Irene Liu, Walter Smith, and the Chikio. This feature is using techniques such as close-ups, alternate camera angles, different background musics, and sound effects. It was used to make games more enjoyable for players, unlike earlier titles such as Final Fantasy. The cutscenes consist of large anime art on the top half of the screen with dialogue on the bottom half. This made the artistic style more reminiscent of other Magna titles, such as Lupin 3, Golga 13, and Dimitri Corona. Tecmo USA's Director of Sales and Marketing said that the advantages of console games over arcades allowed the creation of longer games, and the inclusion of cutscenes, which Tecmo trademarked as cinema screens. He noted the lack of motivation to drop quarters that has allowed this on home consoles, which required a different reward structure than the arcade games. When the game's text was translated from Japanese to English, the game needed to be reprogrammed in order to accomplish this. Different companies handled the process in different ways. Tecmo's Japanese writers wrote rough translations into English, and they would have to fax them to the American division. According to Creona, the American division would edit it and put it back together, telling the story in a context that an American English speaker would understand. This would go back and forth several times. Moreover, the game's text was stored in picture files instead of raw computer text. And because the NES hardware limitations, the English text need to be very clear and concise to fall with those limitations many times. Different words with the same meaning but with fewer characters have to be used. All symbols and objects were scrutinized by Nintendo of America, who had specific rules on what could be included for North American releases. For instance, any satanic, Christian, or any other religious, sexual, or drug-related references were not allowed. I first discovered the game by watching ProtonjonSA's playthrough of it, who is now part of the group known as the Runaway Guys. He completed all 3 games, and oh lord, he went through hell. And if you want to check out his playthrough of all 3 games, link in the description. And in case if you're wondering if I'm going to review Ninja Gaiden 2 or 3, no, I am not. Before we talk about the gameplay of Ninja Gaiden, we got a story to cover. We start the story by seeing 2 ninjas about to have a fight to the death between Ryu's father and a random white ninja. Ryu's father lost, but before he went off to the life and death duel, he written his son a letter. The letter says that he needs to take the dragon sword to an archaeologist named Walter Smith in America. And how does he find him? Well, instead of asking directions, he tries to find him by randomly killing people. After taking out the boss at the first stage, he wonders why the people are following him. Well, gee, after slaughtering people in the first stage, no wonder. He then meets up with a girl. Ryu shows his fancy ninja flirting skills by telling her to get lost. Wow, smooth, Ryu. As a result of that, she shoots him, and he dies. Wow, game's over already? I could have sworn the game was being a lot more difficult than that. Oh, you know where this is going. Turns out the gun was a tranquilizer and Ryu was perfectly fine, and wakes up in a prison cell. The girl meets Ryu in the prison cell and gives Ryu the most ugliest statue I have ever seen. After Ryu escapes from the prison to continue his search for Walter Smith, he finds him, and we finally get to know the name of Ryu's father. Gee, if the protagonist's name is Ryu, let me guess, his name is Ken. Oh, god damn it! Then Walter Smith explains that the demon had enough power to destroy a nation was sealed by 2 statues by the shinobi. No, not that one. Walter and Ken discovered both statues in an Amazon ruin, and for safety purposes, Walter had the light statue and Ken had the shadow statue, so the demon would not wake up when the statues are far apart. Then, all of a sudden, a ninja comes through the window and steals the statue from under his feet. Wow, that's impressive. And Ryu gives chase after the ninja. Ryu recovers the shadow statue. Ryu quickly runs back to Walter Smith to find out that he was attacked and the light statue was stolen. With Walter's dying breath, he explains the demon was asleep for 700 years and is starting to wake up. In order for the demon to be awakened, the light statue and the shadow statues need to fuse under the lunar eclipse. Dr. Smith tells Ryu that he needs to be the ninja of the dragon sword and stop the awakening. Then Walter Smith dies. Then Ryu was captured by CSI agents. The CSI agents take Ryu to meet their leader, Foster, head of the Special Luxury Unit of the Central Intelligence Agency, who explains more of the demon statue and explains to Ryu that they have been monitoring the activity of someone named Garudia de Mediex, also known as the Chiquillo. I don't know why, but does Chiquillo sound like an alcoholic beverage drink? Who then recently moved to the temple using the statues, and Chiquillo plans to awaken the demon known as Jan Shin and use it to destroy the world. Foster asks Ryu to go to the temple and eliminate him. After making it to the temple, Ryu discovers that Chiquillo is holding the girl captive who handed him the shadow statue earlier. He orders Ryu to give up the light demon statue after threatening the girl's life, and he falls through a trapdoor. After finding his way to the top of the temple, Ryu encounters Bloody Malov, whom Ryu defeats. While dying, Malov reveals that he was the one who dueled Ryu's father. He also tells Ryu that his father is still alive, and that Ryu will meet him if he presses onward. Wait a minute. If Ryu's father is still alive, then what was with that life and death duel at the beginning of the game? When he reaches the temple's inner chambers, he discovers that his father was not killed, but instead possessed by an evil figure. He destroys the evil figure, which releases Ken from its hold. Chiquillo, enraged from Ken's release from his possession, shows himself and immediately tries to kill Ryu with a fury projectile. But Ken throws himself in front of Ryu to take the hit. Okay, this has been bothering me for some time, and I've got to talk about it. For a ninja, Ryu sucks at his job. He got shot by a tranquilizer gun, got captured by the CSI, fell through a trap door, and didn't dodge a projectile and let his father take the hit? Ryu, you are literally the worst ninja ever. After that, Ryu swears to take down Jakku once and for all. After a fierce battle, Ryu slays Jakku. But then the lunar eclipse occurs, causing the demon statues to transform into Janshin. After Ryu defeats the demons, Ken shares Ryu his final words before dying.
Why didn't you dodge?
Okay, he didn't really say that. But Ken tells him that he does not have much longer to live due to Jakku's attack. He tells Ryu to leave him behind the temple while it collapses, and to take the young woman with him. Afterwards, Foster, communicating via satellite, orders the girl to kill Ryu and steal the demon statues. She chooses to be with Ryu instead of carrying out her order. The two kiss, and the girl tells Ryu her name, Irene Liu, and the two watch the sunset rise together. Whew! Now that we're done with the story, let's talk about the gameplay. Ninja Gaiden is a side-scrolling platform game in which the player takes control of the player, have to guide Ryu Hayabusa through 6 acts that comprise 20 levels. Ryu's physical strength is represented by the life meter, which decreases when he is hit by an enemy or a projectile. A life is lost when the life meter depletes entirely. When Ryu falls off the screen, which happens a lot by the way, or when the timer runs out. A game over screen appears when all lives are lost. However, the player may restart the level on which this occurred by continuing at the end of every act. The player fights the boss. Bosses have life meters that the player depletes with attacks. A boss is defeated when all of his life meter is depleted entirely. Each boss is one of the Malice 4, evil underlings of the Jakku, the game's main antagonist. The Malice 4 consists of Barbarian, Bomberhead, Basaqua, and the leader Bloody Malif. Players attack enemies by thrusting at them with Ryu's Dragon Sword, a katana-like sword that passed down from the Hayabusa clan for generations. They can also use their secondary weapons that consumes Ryu's spiritual strength. Secondary weapons include throwing stars, a windmill shuriken that can cut through enemies and turn like a boomerang, a series of twirling fireballs named the Art of the Fire Wheel, and a meteor slashing attack called the Jump and Slash. When Ryu's spiritual energy strength meter becomes low, the player cannot use any secondary weapons. Players can replenish Ryu's spiritual energy by collecting red and blue spiritual strength items from lamps and lanterns. Other items along the way can be an hourglass that can freeze all enemies, and projectiles for 5 seconds, bonus point containers, potions that can restore 6 units of health, invisible fire wheels that makes Ryu temporarily invisible for attacks, and then there's 1-ups. Ryu has the ability to jump on or off ladders and walls, and by using the directional pad, he can climb up and down ladders. Ryu can spring off walls by holding the directional pad in the opposite direction he is facing, by pressing the jump button. He cannot attack while on walls or ladders. Players can use this technique to get Ryu to climb up spaces between walls and columns by holding down the jump button and alternating between left and right on the directional pad. Ryu can also vertically climb a single wall by springing off of it, and then quickly pressing the directional pad back towards the wall, which can be a little difficult than it looks. The first and second acts are no problem, but around Act 3 and onwards is where the game starts showing its ugly head. Beginning with the enemies, the birds. I hate these birds! They come out of nowhere and make your progress a living hell. And sometimes these enemies spawn on screen repeatedly, which makes going through certain sections of the stage a living nightmare. And remember that health bar? Well, the knockback is so bad, you are going to get knocked back into bottomless pits all the time! But it's around Act 6 is where the game takes it way too far. Enemies all over the place, and there's a final boss gauntlet of 3 bosses. And remember when you die and you have to start at the beginning of the stage? Well, if you die at least once on the boss gauntlet, you are sent back to the beginning of Act 6! What the hell? And this is a glitch, and the developer Masato Kato knew of this, but he left the glitch in the final game intentionally! That's not fair! And trust me, people, if you have this game on an emulator or bought it on the Nintendo eShop, you will need those save states. Trust me. This game is okay for the first 2 acts, but around Act 3 to Act 6 is where the game starts to get hard to the point of just plain unfair. I play video games for the stress release and have fun, not to cause more stress to have anger issues. If you want a torture experience, go right ahead. But get this game either on the eShop or an emulator. If you're playing this on the raw NES cartridge, I feel so sorry for you. Now that that's over and done with, it's time to move on to the next game. Until then, my name is Paul.K.Dragon, and I wish you guys happy gaming.